Hello, my name is Jeff Rolka. You most likely, if you've been watching this channel, know me from singing exercises and vocalizations, but I've also been doing a home recording little offshoot here because it's my opinion that it has never been a better time to be an independent musician creating music of your own in a sustainable way. And sustainability for a lot of us is the key to a long-term career and success because we're going to keep on going and creating more and more new and compelling material. And a question came up in one of the comments from the other videos about choosing a studio microphone. And so here we are, and I'm going to take you through 4 different microphones: a KSM32, which is currently up right now but you're not listening to, an AKG 414, a TLM 103, and a U87 AI. All of these microphones I own. They are my equipment. The opinions expressed in this video are my own. I have no sponsorships. I have no endorsements. No one is paying me to tell you that these microphones are good, bad, or otherwise. I am supported by you. If you've chosen to get an MP3 off one of my websites, or take a course, or take a class with me, that is how I am supported. So these opinions are my own. I have no endorsements. And with that, let's dive into the KSM32. You are now hearing me on this microphone, the KSM32. I apologize if the levels change from microphone to microphone. I'm going to try and keep them as even as I can, but inevitably they're probably going to wander a little bit. So with this microphone, this is perhaps the most affordable microphone of the 4 that I'm going to be showing you. This was the very first. It is in fact the very first studio microphone I ever purchased. I purchased it at the time because I knew the Shure name and I liked the options. It has a few options in terms of pads and roll-offs of frequencies. It does not have any other polar patterns. I believe it's a cardioid pattern large diaphragm condenser microphone. It does require phantom power. And in my opinion, it's a reasonably good microphone for the money. It's a very durable build. It feels weighty in the hand. And while we never ever want to drop our microphones, I feel like if I did accidentally do such a thing as that, it would probably be okay. Now, in truth, as I have accumulated more microphones and equipment over the years, I rarely reach into the closet for this particular microphone these days. But at the time, it was the best vocal microphone and all-around large diaphragm condenser microphone that I could afford, and I was extremely happy with the purchase at that time. On my second album, I recorded a lot of the acoustic guitars with this microphone. I also recorded the vocals with this microphone. That album was Somewhere in the Fade, which you can listen to examples of it on iTunes and whatever. So that's what I use this microphone primarily for. At the time, it was what I could afford. This is an AKG 414 BULS. Always have to check the letters on that to make sure that I'm getting that right. And you are hearing me through this microphone again. Apologies if any of the levels have varied slightly. I am trying to keep it as even as I can. Forgot to mention I'm going through a Neve 5012 Portico preamp, but that is it. There's no other compression or EQ or any of that sort of stuff on these microphones. It's just straight to the pre and straight to the camera. Also forgot to mention the KSM32. When I bought that, it came with a really nice case and the shock mount that you saw in the video, as well as a dust cover for the microphone. I generally recommend that when you're not using your large diaphragm condenser microphone, you put it away so as to prevent dust getting on it or inadvertently having it knocked over. But it's nice to have the dust cover, though in truth it doesn't really fit all the way over the microphone when it's in the shock mount anyway. The shock mount is more or less mostly made of plastic, but my sense is that to replace it, it would be a lot less expensive than some of the Neumanns, which I'm going to show you in a moment, and we'll get to the whole shock mount issue at that time. As you can see with the 414, it does not have a shock mount. I've never bothered to get one, because I don't generally reach for this as a vocal microphone, mostly because I don't feel like I learned how to use it until quite a long time after having owned the microphone. I've primarily used this for area miking, like if I want a sort of old-timey kind of kit drum sound, I'll put this microphone up a little bit back from the snare drum and get a sort of collective sound of the kit to give it a little bit of an ambiance or an old-timey feel, as if you're recording it, well, with a single microphone, as I was. However, the nice thing about this microphone is that it has a lot of polar pattern options. I'm currently using it in a cardioid pattern. It also has supercardioid, it also has figure 8, and it also has omnidirectional. The important thing about that is that this microphone in its supercardioid pickup pattern makes for a really, really nice vocal microphone that tends to reject a lot of the ambiance that are surrounding it. So if you're recording with this at home, and your environment isn't a particularly well-treated room, or if it has any kind of standing waves or echoes or things like that, using this mic in that supercardioid pattern will eliminate a lot of that external sound from what's getting onto your vocal track. This means that you don't necessarily have to get a reflection filter. You could still do that if you wanted to, but this mic is going to help you a little bit in that regard. I've really come to appreciate this microphone over the years. I use it an awful lot for dual purpose. So you'll see it in many of my earlier YouTube videos. You'll see me using this microphone both to talk with you and also to sing with, and it really, really works well in that capacity. It also has a frequency roll-off on the back side of it, and it also has a pad. So if you had it in front of a really loud sound source, you could take a little bit of that volume off right there at the microphone, and that would help you to keep from clipping your preamp or clipping in your digital audio workstation. All around, I think this is a great workhorse of a mic. You can use it on a lot of different sound sources. I certainly have. Everything from lead or backing ground vocals, acoustic guitars, miking up areas of kits or single percussion instruments. Honestly, I've used it on just about everything at this point, and probably pound for pound the most versatile of the microphones that I use on a regular basis. Quite a bit more expensive than the KSM32. However, I am of the opinion that when you're investing in your main vocal mic, which if this is going to be your singing microphone that you're going to cut your vocal tracks on, better to wait and spend a little bit more money when you make that initial investment than to buy something that you might outgrow very soon. This is a Neumann TLM 103. Perhaps the most basic in terms of options of the 4 microphones that we're going to look at here. It has no switches of any kind on it. It's just a big old large diaphragm microphone in a chunky metal housing and this rather elaborate shock mount, which you will certainly want to have when using this microphone because it is incredibly sensitive. However, that shock mount is perhaps one of the things about this microphone that I feel most hesitant about. You really, really want to have it. However, the shock mount itself is extremely expensive, and the microphone is pretty expensive too, though I would argue for a microphone of this caliber with this kind of build quality behind it is really, really worth it. This, after some time, well, actually, when I got the 414 and I didn't really figure out how to use it, I had been using these TLM 103s in the recording studio where I was at quite regularly, and I knew that I liked them, and so I decided to get one. And in general, I would have to say that that was a really, really good decision, and I have enjoyed using this microphone for many, many years since then. I've cut an awful lot of vocals on it. I've used it for a variety of acoustic guitar applications, and in general, I use it for those sorts of things. If I happen to have it up, I will perhaps cut like some auxiliary percussion parts with it, but generally I use this for vocals, acoustic guitars from time to time, and then aux percussion if it happens to be up already. If the 414 is up, I'm just as likely to use that for the aux percussion as well. The nice thing about this microphone, in my opinion, is that it does get you into the whole Neumann world of microphones, and if you are of the opinion that those are some of the better sounding microphones, and in my experience in the studios that I've worked in, we've used those quite frequently and I've become very fond of them and the sounds that they have, then, it's not a horrible price point to get you into that world. If you're mostly recording acoustic guitars, using a mic like this, where it's the microphone and your preamp, means that you may spend more time finding out about microphone placement, how the acoustic guitar sounds when the microphone is 16 inches as opposed to 12, or slightly at a different angle, or coming at it from a different side entirely, or those different things. With this microphone, I am much more likely to experiment with microphone placement, and in the long run of my work producing or engineering or just recording my own material, those sorts of things tend to accumulate over the years. That experience of listening critically to instruments has helped me get faster and faster in the studio, which, if you're being paid by the hour, can save your client money. And if you're working on your own stuff, saves time, so that you know that you can get in there and you'll be able to listen to that and get a good sound up really, really quickly. And it was with this microphone, because of its limited options, that I did a lot of that experimentation. So I'm very, very fond of the TLM 103s. I like the way they sound. I like the way that my voice sounds on them. And in general, despite having the next mic, which is a U87, when I'm going to record my vocals, I usually grab this microphone. It's the one that I go to. This is a Neumann U87AI. It is a newer version of the classic U87 microphone, and you are hearing me through it through a Neve 5012 Portico preamplifier. More lead vocals for hit songs have been recorded with not this specific microphone, but with the U87 series of microphones than any other microphone in existence. So it seems like it would be worth having. I got this a couple years ago, and I feel like I'm just beginning to learn how to play this microphone. I would normally use it through an Avalon 737 SP preamp channel strip. That seems to treat this microphone in a way that is more pleasing to my ear and the music that I'm creating, but in the interests of consistency with this video, I've left it in the Neve 5012 Portico. That being said, I'm really fond of that preamp as well, and usually when I record my vocals with the TLM 103, I use the Neve instead of the Avalon. But this one seems to like the Avalon a little better, or perhaps I should say I like the sound of my voice through this mic, through the Avalon, a little bit better. Comes with a hefty price tag. These are not cheap microphones, and the shock mounts, similar to the TLM 103, are also awful. That's an interesting Freudian slip. Are also really, really expensive if something should go wrong with it. Even the actual elastic bands on these shock mounts are really expensive. That being said, if you're buying a $3,000 microphone, $2,500, $3,000, then the elastic bands that are on the shock mount are probably not as huge a concern. This microphone, I must admit, I haven't used a ton for that many different applications. I primarily got it to use it as a vocal mic, and that is what I use it for. I keep it in cardioid pattern, though it does have a few other polar patterns. It also has a pad as well as a frequency roll-off. There are those online who would suggest to you that if you use the -10 dB pad, the response of this newer version of the U87AI is more similar to the vintage classics. I've never had a vintage U87 in my possession, so I really can't answer to that. That is just rumor mongering at its best. As I've gotten to know this microphone, I have certainly come to appreciate it a lot more. Do I like it that much more than my TLM 103? Maybe. I feel like it's still a little bit too soon for me to say on that one. I'm kind of still getting there with it. But I do like having it around because sometimes it just has that certain sound that is a little bit different from the other microphones that I own, and that can oftentimes make the difference between something that I find to be pretty good and something that I think is really, really great. So all in all, I'm really glad to have made the investment in the microphone. But here's the thing. In summary, which of these microphones would make the ideal first studio mic. Well, I really wouldn't recommend the U87 as a first studio mic, and I probably wouldn't really recommend the 103, principally because in my experience, those have mostly been used for singular or only a couple applications. And when making an investment like this, I think it's important to have a little bit more flexibility in that early stage. That being said, if you can go to a studio and try these microphones out, and you can come to the conclusion that, yeah, the 103 is what I sound the most awesomest on, then save for a little bit longer and invest in that microphone. You will save money later on by not having to buy it later and having spent $200 or $300 on something that you outgrow really quickly. Would the KSM32 or the AKG 414 make better choices for first studio mics? Maybe. The KSM32 I was very happy with as a first large diaphragm studio condenser microphone. It ticked a lot of boxes in terms of flexibility, and my voice sounded pretty good on it. Had I gotten the 414 first, I might have been in a little bit more trouble because that microphone's a bit more expensive than the KSM32. And I didn't really learn how to use that microphone for quite some time. But then again, I already had a bunch of other microphones in my closet by the time I got the 414. Maybe if that had been my only large diaphragm condenser, I would have had to figure it out sooner and would have realized what a little gem of a microphone it is. But the big picture here is about what's right for your voice and for the genre that you are singing. If you are singing bluegrass or folksy styles, the KSM32 or its slightly more expensive counterpart, the KSM44, might be the end-all be-all of where you go. You will see those used all the time in those genres, and they are extremely, extremely good at representing that kind of folksier sort of style. Then again, your voice might not really sound its best on those, and you may need to go on and experiment with a 414 or a 103 or a U87. Is this an exhaustive collection of microphones? Absolutely not. I haven't answered to a fraction of the really high quality, inexpensive condenser microphones that are out there. I haven't answered to a vast variety of higher quality, expensive microphones, much less boutique microphones that are out there as well. These are some of my experiences with these microphones. The best thing that you can do in choosing one of these mics, if you can manage it, is to go someplace where you can try them out. That's not going to help you with boutique mics, but with a lot of the Neumanns or the 414s and the Shure microphones, you'll be able to try them out. Mojaves, C1000s, Perlman, those sorts of things may be harder to try. The main thing is that the microphone that you choose sounds good with your voice, the way that you sing, and the genre that you make music in. As always, I hope that helps. My name is Jeff. If you got questions or comments, drop them in the comment section. Find me on Twitter. Otherwise, take really good care of your voices, take really good care of your gear. Hopefully we'll see you again. Bye.